I want. I'm so glad I paused it right there. I'm just gonna leave it there right now. We're just gonna let that sit. Okay, I do want to respond to futility. He says, where was the original thing? Over 2 decades of playing this game, and I've heard a lot of "you're just going to have to wait." First of all, somebody saying that the game hasn't been out for 2 decades isn't deflection of the point. It may be being pedantic, but I mean, if you're going to say that, then it's fair for somebody to call you out on it. Secondly, the fact that you've heard a lot of "you're going to have to wait" just means that CCP continues to develop things. We've also heard of a lot of "this is what's out now." Like, things come out, but there's always going to be the next thing. The day you stop hearing "this is going to come out soon" is the day that Eve is dead because it's no longer being developed, right? Like, hearing that something is hearing what's going to come out soon isn't a bad thing. Come on, man. Like, it's not like we're still being told the same shit from, like, I mean, like, in a world in which we just got structure skins, player logos, all this shit that we've been talking, like, what are you waiting on still that you've been promised for years? Are you still waiting on ring mining? Like, what exactly are you complaining about? I don't think so. Like, people, yes, they're always going to be saying that there's something coming next. That's the whole fucking point. That's what development looks like. All right, I'm going to hop on Discord. Let me look at some. We can just do a private call, I guess. Hold on. I'll call you. Just give me a second. Give me. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Let me check levels. Can you say something again?
Hello, hello.
Good. You're a little bit quiet still. I'm going to turn you up a little bit. So, how are you?
Oh man, I am. It's such a mix because, like, on the one hand, I am so hype because a lot of things got said today that I've basically been sitting on my hands about for the
Right.
past 6 months because I have a big mouth.
I don't know anything about that. What are you talking about? No, no, I've never heard of that. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
on the other hand, I am super sad to not be participating in FanFest. I'm literally like 2 kilometers away from like a mile and a half away from the venue, and just because of like family concerns, I have family members who are immunosuppressed
Oh,
and things
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like, I can't even take the risk, or otherwise it's like I don't even get the doghouse. I have to go find a hotel or something.
Yeah, no, no
Not even
kidding.
back.
No, I mean, good on
So
you, man. Like, that sucks. But okay, so let's take a step back, just in case people don't really know who you are. When I first met you, you were working with the events team, right? Or what would now
yes.
become the events team, I guess. So,
Yeah.
but then you disappeared off my radar for a little bit. So, what you been up to?
So for about 2 years, I was working on the tools team, and one of the things that we were doing was we were taking a lot of the how the data is stored and all that kind of stuff, and we were pulling it over into one of the newer data storage systems. And it sounds super boring, and it's like, oh, what the heck does this
We're
have
nerds
anything to
here.
do with anything? But while we were doing all of that, we were also putting together we were improving a lot of the ways that we, the developers and designers, interact with the data. So, like, how we make things happen in the game, and we were improving all of that experience and all that kind of stuff. And in 2 years, I'd say we barely made a good scratch.
Okay.
Like, it was okay on the surface to make things better, but it also meant that we were designing like what were going to be kind of some of the new things as well. And that node graph that Sledgehammer was talking about, that was one of the things that we were super hyped about getting to.
Right, because I remember you talked about it a little bit, and then Sledgehammer talked about it too during Invasions, about how you guys were basically developing the tools to be able to react to things and tell different kinds of stories and reward different kinds of behaviors and stuff like that. Because like originally the sites were literally just like you had to go in there, you had to kill all the stuff, and then you killed the boss, and that was it. And it was just that simple. The introduction of mining challenges, exploration challenges, different kinds, different triggers. All those things were things that came out over time in subsequent events. But you said that you only barely scratched the surface. Is there a reason? Was that expected, or did it take longer?
Barely enough. Yeah. No, we knew that it was going to take that long. That we had 2 years to do it was amazing and awesome. And the thing is that like that team is continuing even now that I'm off of it, and I'm now back on making content. And so for the past year or so, I've been making content. Almost all of the Aegis sites that came out last year, actually. So the 3 Aegis sites plus the Overmind, plus the
so the SCC site, the SCC key site.
Secure, yes.
Yep.
So those 5 sites were mine from last year.
Okay.
And then this year,
one second. Not just fun. I wanted to give you an 07. Thank you for that support. Go on.
Yeah. So this year I've worked on a couple of different ones. It's the we came up with different names for it as they came out, but I've worked on a couple of different smaller sites this past like 3 months or so. And so we're going to have 3 sites done by the end of, actually like the end of this week. Today was the last bit of me working on it. I wasn't at FanFest, but like they kind of give everybody the day off at FanFest, and I was like,
sure.
Man, you know what? I would rather just finish this off so I don't have any of this left for next week. So this is the 3rd site that I've completed in about 5 months, so 6 months. And so, but this one's going to be saved for Crimson Harvest, so it's going to be a little while before it comes out.
So the impression that I'm getting is that a lot of what has happened is what amounts in some way or another as being basically tooling, authoring tooling, or, like as they put it, the foundations, right? So the optimist in me would suggest that like once those doors are open, then the sites should cascade out, right? Like, I mean, at this point, it should be relatively easy to author a new site compared to before. So we should get sites at a more regular pace now, or is that not something? Should I rein in my expectations?
So on the one hand, absolutely, that is correct. So if you want me to just make the same things that we've been doing over the past years, like for example, any mission site that you can think of, you want me to make one of those, I could probably pump that out in maybe like a week or 2, where it used to take us like 6 weeks to make something like that. Absolutely. Awesome. But is that what you want? Like, you want more mission sites? Come on. Like, how many of them are there? They're all the same thing. They're kind of boring. Like, let's spice it up. Let's make something more interesting, like the SEC site or the Aegis Secure Capital site where you kind of have to like stealth your way through different things and all that stuff. Let's make those kinds of sites which are more interesting. Let's use this new node graph editor to kind of figure out how we can do branching, a sort of a I wouldn't say branching narrative, but like something happens in the site, and then because of choices you made during the site, like I chose to shoot at this ship instead of that ship, something else is now triggered or happens because of that. Like all that kind of stuff could happen in a site.
Right now you have a binary, right? It either escalates or it doesn't. But you're saying like it could escalate one way or escalate another way, or just give you a prize now.
Exactly. And then we don't have to just escalate in one of 2 directions. We could escalate in one of like 17 different directions if we wanted to. We could escalate based on the faction that you are, etc. Like,
I just thought about that.
Goodness,
so like you could get a thing, and then it says basically depending on what you do with that, who you bring that thing to, that will depend on where it goes from there. If you give it to the Guristas, it'll lead to something different than if you brought it to the Immortal.
Now you're talking my language.
Excellent. Well, I would argue that a combination of both would be good, right? Like if you can knock out the missions, bam, bam,
absolutely.
bam, then if you do like 5 missions and 1 special site, that 5 missions will like give meat to people and hope and feel like there's a lot of content coming out. Whereas if you only come out with 2 or 3 like special sites, it'll still like there's a good chance that people be like, well, that was like it won't hit threshold of awareness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So cool.
So here's what I'm like extremely excited about, and this was something that Sledgehammer came to me with about 2 weeks ago. He was like, hey, by the way, did you notice we put this into missions? I think he was like, we're going to have it in missions soon. And I was like, yeah, I noticed you already have it on the dungeons. Like we can already like apply these node graphs to dungeons. I didn't know you guys were even thinking about like applying it to missions, so that when someone accepts a mission, we can start doing our tracking and our narrative driven, choice tree, if you will. It's going to feel like a tree where we're like, what did you select in
Well,
the
choose
chat?
your own adventure
Like
book,
when
right?
yeah, it's exactly right. Where it becomes a lot more like the conversations and the scripting systems from games like Dragon Age, like Baldur's Gate, back Neverwinter Nights, things like that, where you have this kind of role play feel to the conversations. We could do that if we wanted to. Are we going to do that every single time? Probably not. I don't think that there's a reason for us to always be using those sorts of things. Sometimes those things in those situations are very binary. It's like there's 4 options, but you always select 2. Come on, what are don't be
Right.
stupid about this. So,
Well, the big advantage here
but
I see is that with it being easier to author, not only does that mean that you can author them more of them, but it means that you could actually treat them more disposable. Like right now, if you come out with a new site and you
exactly,
never use
there
it
you go.
again, it sucks. But if you like, you
Because
could
there's all
actually
that development time.
right. You like you are like you're motivated to like how do we keep this forever, right? Like how do we get to get reuse out of it? But if you can just knock them out, then like having an event or having a mission that's only available for a month or two isn't unreasonable anymore.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So, where else do you want to go with this, man? You're the one that wanted to.
Well, so okay, the thing is like, um I'm really looking forward to what we can do with faction warfare, and I think that like a lot of the real juicy bits are going to come tomorrow. But some of the stuff she said, I think you were absolutely right when you were pointing out some of the things she said and how important it was, and yet how much of a throwaway it sounded to, I think, a lot of folks.
Yeah, it's
When
just
she
like sorry.
mentioned that we could, sorry, yeah, like when she mentioned that like maybe we can find ways, like I forget how she phrased it exactly, but the takeaway that I had from it was, if there's ways for us to apply this system in faction warfare and it's successful, it's cool, it works, maybe the content that's there isn't perfect, but like the system as far as a strategic taking over of territory works well.
I've always said
Can
that.
we apply this? Yeah, can we apply that to like warfare between corporations or or alliances and things like that? Maybe we can. That would be awesome. Is that going to happen in the roadmap that was shown earlier? No, that part of it, that was why she was saying like in speculative
Right.
terms, those kinds of things would be cool to have out of this. But you can see that like our minds are already turning on this of, hey, we've been already talking about how cool would it be to improve how we do strategic territorial,
Right.
you know um capturing, and then once that's done, where else can we use it? What else can it be used for? It doesn't have to be for player corporations and player warfare and stuff like that, but there could be other ways that it could be used, because factions don't just have to be a tangible corporation and that kind of stuff. It could be for other things, like for example, um resources, how resources are sort of distributed. And as you sort of mine out resources in an area, it's kind of the reverse takeover of the strategic territory. And so instead of being a strategic territory, maybe it's like a resource layer on top where like, oh, there's more of this particular resource in these territories or whatever. And as you mine them out of those, then it sort of gives way to a different type of resource.
It decays into a different kind of place.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like there could like possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
Are any of these things happening in the next 6 to 12 months? Probably not. Like,
right.
We have to prove that this works on one end of things.
The way
we think that the first place to start is faction warfare.
The way I like to think about it, or the way I'm thinking about it now, is like, so you can know the heading, the general direction that you're going. You know, you can have your nose far, and you know exactly what you need to do to take your next step. And you have a general idea, you know, you can see the tree ahead of you, so you know you're going to go that way in your next step. But the further you go down, the more murky it is. You know what general direction you're going, but as soon as you get to that step, then the next step will be clear. The next step is always clear. But 3 steps from now, trying to predict that is like trying to predict the weather in 2 weeks, right? Like it's easier to predict the weather that's happening this afternoon. It's trickier to do it for tomorrow. It's a challenge to do it within a week, and it's foolish to do it for more than that. So the most you can say is like, oh, it's going to be hot during the summer, right? Like, so as we get close, so that's what you mean. Like that's the trajectory that we're going, but we can't give you details because we're not going to try to lock down details, and we understand how this current step works out.
Right. And I think that's a really good way to put it, because that's sort of what we want to try to accomplish at this point is we want to see, hey, we're going to throw some, maybe gravel into the sandbox, and so it's a sandbox, but now you've got gravel. What will players do with gravel in the sandbox too? Oh, okay, maybe that didn't work out very well or whatever, and we're okay then going, okay, cool, that was okay over there, we'll keep that over there, and we'll make sure that we make it finer gravel for the rest of the area or whatever. Let's iterate upon it, or let's try to make sure that we refine this part of it before we move on to the next part. And so what may end up happening is that we go 2-3 years of refining the factional warfare stuff and all that kind of thing to make sure that it works the way we want it to, so that it kind of gives the right vibes when it comes to the sandbox of factional warfare, or that particular corner of the sandbox, if you will. And then we'll see about some of the other stuff. And that's sort of the thing, like it really kind of got tossed out there, and sometimes we at CCP, and I admit this so much, it's just we fail at communication.
It's always I've always said that, like CCP's biggest problem has always been communication. Sorry.
Because that's the thing, like if you look at her, she is like so excited about this, so passionate about this, and she's the closest to some of the like design documents on this thing.
Right.
She's like, she wrote them, she refined them, and like all of us were the ones looking at it and going, yeah, we absolutely agree. I mean, they're following a lot of the same design principles. They're following some of the same designs that other people have done before, where we've talked about things like front lines before, not quite in those words and not with the same eloquence that she's gotten it into, but she's gotten it past leadership, and that's where it starts to win, because it wins over their hearts, and then they go, oh hey, yeah, look at all of the research that we've been doing that says that this is something that we have to look at and that we have to care about, and now we've got some really solid solutions in our hands that we're ready to kind of push forward with. And that's something that has been taking quite a while to kind of come about. These conversations were not conversations in a vacuum. We've been talking to folks. Yes, I agree. Most of those folks have NDAs, and so no one else has been really chatting about this. And we're sorry, but that's kind of it. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they wanted to drop bombs on the fan fest, and some of them are a little bit less explosive than they should have been.
What I think is interesting. So like we got all the spice, but we didn't get any of the meat, right? Like. The thing is that we got some of our questions answered. Like, why did scarcity happen? I feel like CCP Larkin answered the question of why scarcity was at least needed, made a good argument for it, right? Where are we going from here? That I think was answered by, by the living universe and the faction warfare and all that stuff. What is for nullsec?
Right.
That question wasn't even attempted to be answered. I think that's really the problem. Like, if they had just thrown some meat to the nullsec guys, it would have been a totally different matter.
And I mean, it's quite a valid point.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's really hard to hit every part of the sandbox because it's, I mean, on the one hand, it's so big, but then on the other hand, it's so small. It seems like, oh, it's just nullsec, like, nullsec, faction warfare, and highsec. What else is there, right?
Well, you say that, so like, I am definitely like on the top of the stack of people that say like the game isn't just for nullsec, when other people do. But the reason why I bring that up is because of all of the people who felt the pain of scarcity, nullsec felt it the worst. So they're the ones that I think need the most coddling right now. They're the ones that need the most assurance that this was worthwhile. And they're the ones that need to have the most understanding that things are going to get better for them. And then being told that the big thing is faction warfare, it is very easy for them to interpret that as just another fuck you.
Yeah. And I think what we sort of glossed over in some of those talks were things like how, right, we're looking into how siege mechanics work. We're looking into kind of covering some of the blueprint issues that have arisen because of scarcity, right? We've been working on those sorts of things, right? So it's coming along, and I think some of those things are not going to be tied to the expansion cadence.
Well, but the thing is that the problem isn't just about blueprint. Like, it's not about just alleviating the pain, right? The issue is that from invasions, I've had my close friends in nullsec saying like, well, what's in it for nullsec? And literally the only answer that's come out is metaliminal storms, and that's like a nothing. Yeah. So like there really is a hole there, legitimately.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're not going to be the one with the answer, but like I think it's worth saying out loud, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is that, a lot of it comes to like, just wait for the rest of FanFest. Like, announcements are going to be made still. Like, there's still a few things that were kind of that have been kept under wraps that I'm just avoiding altogether. And
Fair
it's
enough.
like, but at the same time, like, there's some other things where like I'm not avoiding it, but like I don't have any answers for it either. So like some of that's going to have to come along as we go. And unfortunately, it sounds like I'm trying to hype it up maybe, but I'm really not. It's just a matter of like, what gets announced, and what doesn't, we're sorry. That doesn't mean that we don't care about those things, but that they aren't the immediate focus as we go.
I mean, you haven't suggested that it's going to be the biggest announcement in a long time, so I think you're doing pretty good so far.
I mean, the biggest announcement for me personally was just seeing them show the node graph editor. I know it's like the dumbest thing.
Literally, as soon as I saw that, I thought of you. I was like, oh my, that's it. That's exactly, because I've had, like I said, I've had you explain pieces of it to me. I've had Sledgehammer talk to me about it. And, I've obviously done node graph based things, in other places. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, it both was like, this is the hope. And it also made me understand all of the little bugs that end up coming out, right? Because the problem with those sorts of graphs things is that one little thing that's wrong with the graph has like these weird spirally problems that it's like, oh, okay, once it's identified, you fix it or whatever. But like, you kind of don't know what's going to happen until you don't realize what's not wired up right until it goes wrong.
Yeah, and sometimes because of how complex we want to make those things, it doesn't become evident exactly what it is that's wrong until you do some really funky things. I remember when we were working with blueprints in, well, I was working with blueprints in Unreal, that I was doing something really funky with it,
For
where
people who don't know,
essentially it was a,
real quick, blueprints in Unreal means so Unreal has a codeless solution. So rather than having to write code for all the functions, they have basically one of these node graphs things that does all of the code for you, and it's called blueprints. Go on.
yeah, and each blueprint node is basically a function in the code, so it like it has a specific like function or method or whatever you want to call it, you know. And the funny thing was that like you know, it's this kind of weird like 7-tier tree, you know, so you've got like 7 tiers, 7 decisions basically being made along the way, and they, you know, every single one of the tiers has like multiple different directions that it could go, and then there's ways that you could double back, etc., and all that weird stuff. And the thing is, it was like, okay, if you run this tree in like this super specific order 7 times, and then on the 8th time you go this other direction, then this happens. But it won't happen if you do it, you know, if you run it more than 7 times or less than that, you know, like
You want to make like ghost stories, right? You want like, I know how to unlock Mario or Luigi and Mario 64 shit, don't you? You want like kids on the in the school like trading rumors about how to trigger the mission where you go deal with Fatal. Like what do you like? Ah, that's mean. That's funny though.
That's so cool, but like that's how, like, those are bugs usually. Like when you did that in that, like that was a bug, but it doesn't pop up. The bug doesn't pop up unless you go through these super specific steps and something really funky happens,
Right.
essentially. And it's like, oh my goodness, like who's gonna catch that? Who? Like, I mean, like no one was thinking about having to try to run the tree in a specific way, all, you know, whatever.
Right.
So it can absolutely, and I was having a conversation earlier with some other folks, and someone pointed out like you had so many other scripting systems that you could have used, or scripting formats that you could have used. Why didn't you use any of them? A lot of them are going to be much better for some of the applicable solutions, like especially like if you're talking about a general scripting language for Eve. But that's not what this is. This one in particular is a lot more like Twine or Twinery. If anybody's ever used twinery.org, it's a really cool um, narrative system where basically what you're doing is you're creating narrative nodes for people to go to, and then as they move through the nodes, they're essentially moving themselves through the narrative and the story. And that's kind of what we were looking for here. Was
Right.
we were looking for a solution for telling our stories, whether it be in missions, whether it be in the sites and the dungeons, whether it be in the incursions or anything like that. Where do we want to put it? We don't know. We'll decide that later, but we want to tell this kind of narrative thing going along. And it doesn't always have to be narrative as in, you know, some NPC is talking at me for 30 minutes, or like I have to watch Lost Ark's what was it? It had like the cutscenes and all that. Like, oh my goodness, like I don't want to have to do all that. And that's not what it's about, but it's about being able to tell the story in game terms. Like, you know, this ship shows up and then he spots you and he starts to try to get away. If you web him, this happens. If you don't tackle him and he gets away, then this other thing happens. That's the narrative. That's the narrative. That's how we want to do it. And because the interaction that you're having with all of these guys is through your ship,
Right.
you know?
So
it's
an example
not through chat and all that nonsense.
So an example would be like any anomaly that you do, there's a 5% chance that if you notice it, a scout will land on the grid. And if you get him, then that triggers something else. Like that's a different way of doing escalation. So you have to keep your eye out.
Exactly.
Cool.
And that's a big thing about this, is like one of the things that we would prefer to do with escalations is use something in the game to like hand to you or to show you, like, okay, you're hacking this can or whatever, and in the can is a set of coordinates, and if you grab those coordinates, then you now have the bookmark for the escalation, rather than it's just there. It's in your journal.
Right.
But we could do that in different ways. Like, for example, you lock down this ship and you tackle him and you're like, I got you. And then he opens comms channel. He goes, look, man. Look. Okay, if you let me go, I swear on my life, I will transmit the message to you with the coordinates. Okay, I swear I'll do it. Just let me go. And you're like, should I let him go? All right, I'll let him go. And then it rolls the dice and it goes 40% chance he tells the truth and he actually transmit it. 60% chance he just gets away. Right?
I love the I just had a vision of like the very first time like a player like goes like you're just doing normal missions like everything else or whatever, and then rather than popping up in local, it just pops up a window like this guy wants to open up a chat just like a player would, and you're like, wait, what? And you click on it and it's like you have a combo just like with the player, and he's talking to you just like a player. And you're like, now I don't know I don't know what's happening anymore. I don't know if I'm actually interacting with a player or an NPC. That would be that I think that would probably be a dream point to get to. If you can give people a moment of doubt as to whether or not they're interacting with an NPC or player, I think that would be considered a pretty big victory.
Are we going to get there tomorrow? Are we going to get there this year? I don't know. This is part of it, and this is actually why I knew that this was going to be the last site I was making for this prior project. Essentially, I was sort of doing an exploration on capital ship content, and although I've got 2 more sites that I would like to do to kind of complete that project, I knew that this was the last one that I was going to do, and I've known so for about a month or so, maybe a little more, because I knew that what we're going to switch to is finding ways to use these systems. I may not be putting a lot of content personally into factional warfare or into nullsec or highsec, but anything's possible at this point. My first kind of job in the next week or 2 is to learn this as much as possible. So I'm super excited.
So the big question that a lot of people had, and I have, and hopefully you can give me some kind of answer for this, and if you can't, then whatever, I'll keep hunting for it. But it's been 3 years. We haven't had very much content. It's been scarcity. I pointed out that oh, well, why would they have not come out? Why would they come out with content during scarcity? It should, they've had 3 years to build up stuff and be ready to show it now. Why is there not more things done?
So I think a lot of that has to do with how focused we were on the new player experience, the MPE.
Then why isn't more of the MPE done?
Good question. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the majority of the work for MPE only started about 2 years ago.
That's fair.
But
2.5 years to get the first segment in the mining segment, we couldn't even get a preview of the exploration segment. That's not 2 years of work.
That's not all though.
Okay.
Yeah, of course not. Absolutely. So we kind of lump in things like the skill planner.
Yeah, of course.
All that kind of stuff is also really kind of hooked into this. I kind of say unfortunately because it makes it seem like there's a lot less to it than really was.
I mean, I've said something along those lines. Like people are like, "Oh, well, there's all this effort going into MPE," and I go, "Yeah, but what is NPE, right? Like, it's like they
where's the boundary?
Anything that makes things more accessible also makes things better for experienced people, right? Even normal accessibility features, right? Make things more convenient for people that even if you don't necessarily need those accessibility features. So in that sense, things like skill plans and all that stuff count as MPE, even though it's for everybody.
Yeah. And a lot of times we kind of do that in order to, I wouldn't say get one over on leadership, but it definitely helps to sell it and give it kind of that push that it needed. MidnightSpaceMonkey pointed out that the NPE just shifts where the new players hits the cliff, just delaying basically where they hit the cliff rather than actually smoothing it down. And that's probably very true. You saw those videos. I love how you pointed that out, those videos, especially about like the spiraling and stuff like that. Those are awesome videos, excellent teaching tools. And if we can provide those kinds of things in game, then absolutely those are things that continue to push that back to make it so that it's that cliff happens later, not earlier.
I think that one of the things that make me nervous about that is the fact that you guys already have so many tutorial videos in the client and don't you guys don't even point to the tools that you do have. Like, it's just, I don't know, that it makes me nervous because it's like you can put in as many cool tutorial videos as you want, but if people don't access it, if they aren't led to it, if there's no breadcrumbs to it, then who gives a shit?
Yeah, because they'll never see it, so it doesn't
matter. A new player doesn't even know to look for it, right? Like, they have to have it shoved under their nose. Otherwise, they won't see it. They won't even know to look.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like one of the things, it's been a little while, but like I played Crusader Kings 3, and it also has quite a steep learning curve. Just the Crusader Kings games in general. I'd say all of Paradox Studios games in general have a steep learning curve to them. And one of the things that I thought Crusader Kings 3 did amazingly well was they made it so that their tooltips can open more tooltips. So like, for example, you mouse over a tooltip, the tooltip locks in there, and then there's like a keyword and you're like, oh,
right.
Oh, what? And then you mouse over that, and then that pops up another thing. And so we've implemented something kind of similar in Eve. And, this is the kind of stuff that like the more we link these things in, the more we link things like videos about how to do certain maneuvers and things like that, the more we start to then have a comprehensive way for players to very easily, like, I mouse over this module and go, what the heck is this module? What does it do? How does it work? And what am I supposed to do with it? When do I know that I'm getting a good whatever it is that this module does? Like, how do I know that I'm getting the right thing? And so they mouse over it, then there's a little thing there that says like this is what it does, and then like, okay, cool, right. But then there's like links to other things. That's when it really starts to shine. But we've barely scratched the surface on those kinds of things as well. But they're in the game now. Like we've got some of these things in the game now, and so that's what we've been trying to do over the past 2 years. And we've started with the things like the exploration.
Whoa!
What's his name was.
All right, hold on. Futility. I appreciate that. Hell, I mean, for somebody who I just called out, like,
what a hype night.
Holy shit! Thank you so much, Futility. With 20 gifted subs, Lasvig, Zero Gravitas, Banksy, Sam Spock, Mr. Ganja, Koosh, High Heel, Dwarf Bar, Carrot Too Good, Sicordus, Canuck Down Under, Sir Fallon, Wolf Spirit, Dr. I'm going to go with Bob, Hannibal Deka, Hunter's Hanger, Sven Vako, Sleep Speakins, Shazlin, Sidewinder, Spiritwinder, Woodchuck Jim, and Fade to Black 944 on behalf of all 20 of those, and myself and everybody here. Thank you so much, Futility. That is mighty kind of you. And bully on you, dude. Bully on me you is a good thing, right? I think. I just realized, like, as soon as I said it, I was like, that's not as a normal American term, but yeah. All right, Dragon, you still there?
Yeah, that was hype, dude.
That was hype.
You were having a night, man.
Hey, so that's actually honestly one of the things about this keynote that's I've been in conflict with, because like on a personal level, they might as well have been like, here, Ashtarothi, here's your golden ticket, right? Like, I mean, it's going to be about the lore. They're not going to talk about it. You got to look into the universe. It's going to be faction warfare. Like, it was Ashtarothi's keynote in that sense. But on the other hand, like, I feel bad, I guess, for the people that are left without direction, On the other hand, I'm frustrated because What I really wanted CCP to do was shut up the naysayers, and they absolutely did not do that.
No, of course.
Yeah.
And so, and part of what I think I'd like to point out, and you mentioned this earlier tonight, and I just want to kind of pump this maybe a little more, make it a little more visible to folks. So last year there was that super awesome Minmatar video, right? Like that thing gave me chills to watch. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. The you're talking about the Mimitar from last year, right?
Yeah, the like the tribal,
Yeah. Let
like
me actually pull that
liberation
up.
games
Let me
kind
pull
of.
that up for people real quick while you talk, because that's a good one.
It was a beautiful video, gave me chills to watch this thing. It was so cool. And right now a lot of the people kind of asking us these questions, like, you know, why isn't nullsec getting more love? Why isn't, why are you so focused on this thing, could have been said about that video too. Would you have wanted a more watered down version of that video just so that we could hit all of the empires at the same time? Or is it okay that we go ahead and do that and say, you know what, 2021 Minmatar, 2022 Kaldari? Like, is that okay?
I'm going to parry this, though, and send it right back at you, though, because you just activated a trap card, because they absolutely did all 4 of the empires. They just put more into the Mimitar, and they straight up said that. So the other guys did get their token thing, and the Mimitar represented the apex, knowing that we were going to go back to the other ones later. So by that same logic, you should have had something for the nullsec people, even if it wasn't like, hey, right now it's faction warfare love, but here's shows that we care about nullsec, and soon nullsec's going to get the exact same amount of care as that is. And I think that would have gone over a lot better.
True, absolutely. And to that I say, well, okay, the difference there is that the number of people that they had working on videos and getting something like that put together was enough to be able to do that in that amount of time.
Oh, well, apparently MidnightSpaceMonkey gifted you 3 months of sub.
It's cool. You kind of skipped over that.
I completely missed it. I missed it completely. I apologize. 07 Midnight. Midnight is such a cool dude. That's honestly like one of the things I've been super angsty about during this entire conversation is that Midnight is frustrated, because, like, on the one hand, he's got good reason to be frustrated. On the other hand, I just know how good of a solid dude he is. So I want MidnightSpaceMonkey to be happy, right? Like, he deserves to be for how much he does for the community and everything. But
and that's precisely kind of how we feel about it too, right? Like, we want, if there was a button I could press that would just be like, all our players, makes them all happy right here. Like, come on,
well, yeah,
we would be doing it.
Fair.
We really don't want to be leaving behind anybody or anything like that. And a lot of it has to do with, and I've seen a lot of our designers leave within the past year, and not because, like, they've been doing bad or anything like that. No, they've been rock stars at what they do. They're just finding opportunities, they're moving up in the world, and it's so good to see that, because I know that they're going to better places. And on top of that, it means that we'll be getting new blood, because as you saw, and I love how you pointed that one out too, it was like, here are the new CCP guys that we have, right? It's not like we have fewer CCP folks,
right.
We have more and new folks in. That's why we have so many CCP folks who have never been to a fan fest before, because over the 4 years we've grown, and we've been hiring lots of new faces, and it's awesome and amazing. And that's, on the one hand, that is helping us be able to kind of tackle more things at the same time. So I was talking to some folks with Erst a little while ago, and one of the things that I wanted to point out was we're really not reducing the amount of stuff that we're developing for the NPE.
Right. Okay.
They are continuing at full steam, the same steam that they've been going for 2 years, but we've added people to be able to do more stuff across the board. Now, are we going to be able to tackle like 20 more things? No, but we're going to be able to tackle more than just the NPE now, you know?
Right.
And
Well,
that's kind of what I think that some people haven't realized. It's really hard to talk about that even in a fan fest or anything like that. So it's a, I don't know.
Shoot, I had a point. Phooey.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. Oh well. But I will go to there's some questions about it. Somebody asks, what kind of like, how do you get new devs up to speed about EVE Online itself? Another person asks, how many CCP folks actually played the game? Do you have any insight into that? Because like, if you're staffing up, I remember what I was going to say. I was going to point out that, one of the things that I will say about CCP is that they have always been criminally understaffed across the board, right? The lore team doesn't have enough people. The faction warfare people don't have enough people. Nobody has enough people. There just isn't enough people for any department in CCP. It's always been true. They've always been criminally understaffed. So
I kind of feel that way too, because, and maybe this is just like my bias as a former player talking, because like there's so many parts of that game that we should be working on at the same time, and and it's like, oh, we just can't. Oh, dang it.
Right. Exactly.
And so, somebody has to make that decision. I'm glad it's not me, but somebody has to make the decision on what the priority is moving forward. And it's super sad that things get kind of left behind. Now, to answer that question of like, how do we get people up to speed? I have to admit the majority of developers, game designers, specifically, let me stick with game designers. The majority of game designers that we have had to get up to speed, where it's like, hello, welcome to EVE Online. Let me explain what EVE Online is. The number of people that I've had to do that with, and the 5 years that I've been at CCP, is like, yeah. So anyways, so here's the thing. As an example, CCP Aurora, she could teach me more about EVE than I could teach her.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely. I believe that.
Yeah.
Not even a slide on you.
That's the thing. Maybe no, probably not. Two other people who were not game designers when I joined the company, but they had already been at the company for a while, so they knew probably more about EVE's past couple of years than I did. I mean, and plus they played EVE a lot more than I did at the time that I joined the company. Two of those people, Sledgehammer and Nomad, and both of them are now game designers. So this is what I'm saying is like, how many people do I have to teach about EVE when they join the company, like in game design? Yeah, none. I'm learning more about it than.
So if I understand what you're saying is what I'm hearing is that in the same sense that like the major hires from the community team recently have all been from, the community, right? You've got, Convict, Aurora, who is now double ascended, but, Swift, all of them, it's all from the community. And then not just the community team, you'd expect it from the community team, but look at Satonia being hired as a QA guy. So what you're saying is that even beyond all that, a lot of the people that are being hired are coming from the player base already, even behind the scenes.
Yes. And when I first got here, my first reaction to that was, oh, fudge. Like, really? What do players know about game design? Well, let me tell you, game design and game design principles are so easy to teach
Yeah, that's true.
Eve, on the other.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, like once you, it's a matter of perspective, right? Like a player in the trenches, you're in the trenches. But as soon as you get your perspective from on top, you know, you get taught the basic concepts. Or like, you know, you can go to movies and enjoy movies all you want, and not know how to produce it. But the act of knowing, like being taught the magic trick, isn't the hard part. It's understanding which magic tricks people like that is the hard part. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Yeah. But I think like it's very, very easy for me to say this, because I think this is kind of where it comes from, is that like it's hard to teach EVE Online. It's actually easier. It's almost easier to find people who do that particular job, who also happens to know EVE Online. So as an example, that the UI guy who was up there, I forgot, started with J. Shoot, I forgot his CCP name. He was up there talking about the UI, the buttons, and all that kind of stuff. Brilliant guy. Like this is the type of UI person that I want making decisions about our UI in our game. And he has an Eve background. Now, did he need to be taught some things about Eve? Yeah, sure. But how much in comparison to someone who, say, for example, had never played Eve, or who didn't understand the community or anything like that? You know, even someone who, oh, I played it back in 2009. It was a lot of fun. I did this with my corp and that and blah, blah. But I haven't played it since then. That person is easier to onboard into the Eve universe and say, like, okay, these are the things that we need to kind of care about. Now, what can you teach us about UI and UI design?
That's a good point.
I'm not a huge fan of the undock button as he is, but I think that he does have a bit of a point, which is that like we want things in our game to feel good when you click it, when you make it happen, and all that kind of stuff. It should
juice it up, guys.
Yeah. So, I mean,
all right. Well, I'm going to play the Mimitar video real quick so we can take a little break from our conversation and gather our thoughts. This is from last year.
Let me tell you who we are. We have a legacy. A legacy that shaped us. A legacy that we've built. We united on this mother world. We rose together as the 7 tribes. One people forging our future. They came to destroy it. They tried to break us, divide us, to scatter the tribes. But we fought back. We rose as brothers and sisters, seizing victory from the vile chains we broke. And today we stand. We stand as the 7 tribes of Matar. We stand as Minmatar.
You know, my only problem with this video is, with this Mimitar video, it has set the bar so high, it's so much harder to enjoy the other ones. Like even the new Caldari one, right? Like I just liked it, and then I watched this Mimitar one. I'm like, man, I wish it was like as punchy as the Mimitar one. Still, like that was. It's blown the sense of scale out by how good it is.
It's hard to hit home runs all the time.
It's a victim of its own success. So
I love this video. this still frame.
That is the best. That is the best pause moment I've ever had. I don't know if I'm going to watch the rest of the stream now. I think that I just need to keep it right here. They fit the race. Okay, well, MidnightSpaceMonkey says he fits the races perfectly, and I don't disagree. And the Caldari one is good, but I mean, like, the Caldari one. I'll tell you this: the Caldari one makes me go, "Oh shit, the Caldari are dangerous." The Mimitar makes me go, "Fuck yeah, let's do this!" You know, like it's just a totally different emotional reaction. Like when I see like all of the Caldari guys standing up in like formation and like all that stuff, I'm seeing like, oh shit, when's Darth Vader showing up? Right? Like this is the evil empire about to roll out. But maybe that's my Galente bias showing or something. So cat ears.
Heck yeah. So here's the thing. I mean, like, in the 5 years I've been here, we've gone from different shades of dark to having some color. Like I've seen pink, purple now.
It's true.
Things that
we've gone
never
from
had those colors.
We've gone from like grimdark Warhammer to like Blade Runner neon, dystopia. Very much.
Which is still a cool sci-fi feel to it. It's just a different one. Yeah.
I like it. And I think it vibes a lot better too, honestly.
Especially nowadays. Like maybe 20 years ago, maybe it wouldn't have flown quite as well, but like maybe today, maybe it's doing a little better. I think Wolfcat has a great point. Don't let the art department know about it until it's too late, obviously, but like with attachments on your ships and everything, you might be able to make your own cat ears. Hey, I'm just saying.
So instead of the time to penis ratio, we're gonna have the time to cat ears ratio. I think that you guys would be okay with that.
Absolutely. I mean, the time to penis ratio is also something we care about either. Like equal opportunity, go for it.
Fair enough. I will ask a question. I don't know whether or not you're the right person to ask it, but it's worth asking, I guess. It was asked earlier before to Paragon, but I'll pitch it to you, which is just, this is an angsty question that keeps coming up. How much, in your opinion, just in your opinion, not as official CCP like representative, but just as a person who works there, how much influence do you feel of Pearl Abyss, having gone through the transition? How much influence do you see that Pearl Abyss having on it? Or what do you think is the effect that Pearl Abyss has had on the company?
So personally, and I will say this is an official representative of CCP, CCP Dragon, and I 100% stand behind this. I feel none of Pearl Abyss pushing down on me, trying to make me do things their way or anything like that. I'm not paid to say that. I swear, there's nobody here with a gun to my head. Nothing. I'm fine. I swear.
Blink twice.
Blink twice if you're
no. But what about the other direction though? Do you think, has there been a positive influence? Because like, I know that CCP, a lot of their development decisions were influenced on the fact that basically they've been behind the curve when it comes to their financing and everything for basically since Incarna. So has Pearl Abyss changed things in a positive way in that sense, would you say?
So, and this is where I go into my speculative, I work at the company, but you don't know my name.
Taking off the jacket, hanging it up.
Yeah, take that right. Yep.
Anonymous lizard person here. Go ahead and what do you have to say about it?
Dune shirt for Arrakis. I got my cool Dune shirt on. All right.
The spice must flow.
Yes, the spice. I hear actually it's the builds. The builds must flow. So I think that there's I think two parts to it, and I think you were right to kind of like the way you asked that question sort of hints towards that. Number one is was there financial pressure beforehand, and is there a different type of pressure now today? And I believe I haven't seen any evidence of it, but I could understand if there is a bit of this, where we have lost the kind of the the pressure that was there before about financials, about trying to find ways to super aggressively monetize the game.
Every
Especially
feature.
when
How are
we
you
were
going to
trying
monetize this
find-
feature? How are you going to monetize this? How are you going to
Exactly,
justify this feature?
exactly.
What is it? How's this feature going to get money in? Speaking of money, 07 to you, J555. Thank you for that 3-month subscription. You are awesome. 07 to you. Yeah. So you're saying that like
Exactly.
it freed up design space a little bit.
I'm not 100% sure it freed up design space, but it definitely, actually, you know what? You're right. Yeah, it did. Because instead of having leadership and a lot of sort of middle management occupied with like, how do we make the most money out of this? They've kind of gone, hey, look, we as a company know how we've made money off of this game. Yes, there are always ways for us to open new opportunities and new avenues. I think you might be right. I'm not 100% sure. Well, I'm going to say I'm not 100% sure. Let's say no comment on that. Concerning some of the stuff that Rattati talked about, all I'll really say about that is wait for his talk tomorrow. See what he has to say about it. Make a decision on that when you get a little bit more information. That may still not be enough information. I don't know how much information he's going to provide. I don't know how much information there is. So I haven't seen a lot of the documentation about this.
Fair enough.
I couldn't say it, even if I wanted to.
So since we're down this rabbit hole anyways, though, around the same time as Pearl Abyss acquired CCP, though, you also see the major change in how CCP measures metrics, which led them to rapidly change their perception on a lot of things, including war decks and all that stuff. So how much do you think, just again, jack it off, speculation, having seen it all yourself, how much do you think that the player's perception of Pearl Abyss's influence was coincidental to the other things that were shifting the perception of things at the time? The change from the CCP Siegel reign to the CCP Burger reign, the change in how metrics are used and studied. How much of that, do you think that that's part of the issue?
So, I don't know, and I don't think it really affects us that much. I think maybe there is a little bit of I want to impress the owners kind of thing, but I don't really see it in anybody. Like,
well, what I mean is, like, do you think that there was? Do you think that there was changes for other reasons, like, for instance, the metrics and all that stuff, that players, because the Pearl Abyss buyout happened at around the same time, and that was that was in everybody's face, that they attribute it, the change in behavior and direction of CCP, to the acquisition of Pearl Abyss, as opposed to the other things that were happening that changed things?
Good question. I'm really not sure.
I'm gonna have to keep hunting.
But I definitely sort of sensed some changes with folks like Hilmar and some of our leadership, where I just felt that they kind of relaxed a little bit more about how we dealt with a lot of the sort of design questions that we had. It was and actually I think that it, more than an influence of Pearl Abyss or anything like that, it actually comes more from the change in design leadership at the time.
Right. Okay, good.
Yeah, I think that's actually where it comes from. And not specifically Burger, but I'm going to actually point this to someone who we haven't heard from at all, which is the current design director.
Ominous.
So I absolutely love the previous design director. The dude is awesome. He's the one who got me hired here. I thought he was amazing, and like his passion for games, he was not afraid to be a little bit more belligerent than probably we should be in a professional setting. but he was so passionate about doing the right thing for players that's just how he decided he was going to be, and that's just his personality. And he was great. I loved him. Great guy. Dude's been in the industry like 25 years now or something like that. The guy's crazy.
Okay, I'm going to take you back out of the woods a little bit and get you back into your wheelhouse, if that's all right.
All right.
So
sure.
You said that your biggest thing recently was all the new sites, right? The SEC site, the Dread site, the Capital Shipyard site, the Road Drone site, and the T3, site that escalates to the Capital Shipyard site.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
can I real quick? There's a question in chat that I think is a good one to answer. Did you get that right? Was leadership not aware of FW issues? How connected to?
Oh no, everybody was. I can tell you that right now.
So, yeah, absolutely. This was something we knew about and we've known about for probably longer than I've been at CCP. Like, we were talking about this as designers and going, hey, so I've got this like design for what we could do to sort of revamp some of the stuff in FW. It'd be pretty quick, maybe it's like 3 months tops, quick adventure, 20 minutes in and out. And we'd have leadership go, yeah, but that's 20 minutes that you're not doing this other stuff that we kind of need to, like,
yeah.
So like I said, somebody has to make the priority call, and thank God it's not me.
Absolutely. And
all right, so back to sites.
I would say that faction, like, everybody knew that there was a problem with faction warfare, but how to actually fix it, or more importantly, what it should be and what that scope could be and what it is worth budgeting for, that was always the big question. All right. So you made these sites. I would say that they do some cool stuff, but overall they haven't been very popular, I would say, mostly because the rewards. But at the same time, when CCP Ratati talked about how, this is going to be the year of content, one of the things he cited was those exact sites as an example of the kind of things that we're looking at. How do you feel these sites have gone? Like, obviously they haven't been that popular. Does that discourage you? Do you feel like there's something wrong? Is there lessons that you have learned?
There's nothing particular that I've learned from the reaction of players to the sites. The reaction of players to the sites is not unexpected from my personal perspective. I did not make the decisions on the rewards that were placed within those sites.
Ah, okay. Right. So you think the sites are engaging, but when you see the rewards, you're like, yeah, obviously it's not going to have a huge uptake.
Right. Because the thing is, like, okay, so we made a site. It's supposed to be like a 30 minutes with this type of ship, 25-ish if you can, min-max with this. The people who finally kind of solve it are going to come up with some really awkward solution that we never expected, and they'll be doing it in 10 minutes. But the majority of players are really going to be hitting kind of that 30-minute mark. Cool. So 30 minutes, how much money do we expect to get out of this? Because so many people are asking, what's the ISK per hour of this? Yeah. And so they're sitting there going, all right, so what's the ISK per hour? What can I expect? And I'm sitting there going, okay, so this is what I'm expecting out of this. This is how much time I'm expecting for people to go into this for, and et cetera. What do you think we should put in? What are we going to put into this, et cetera? And that's usually usually the process that we go through. But for these sites, it's been the opposite, where it's, here's what we have to give you. Please make a site that is X amount of time, and it's like, that doesn't match. That, like, here's the problems I think there's going to be. Don't worry about it.
They need to go to low sec. It takes them 30 minutes, and it's 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of it was like, don't worry about it. This will be the only place that they can get these things. Spoiler, it's not. And these things are going to be so valuable. They're going to be X amount. So obviously it meets your requirements of how much you think that should take, like how much money they should be pulling out of this place every 30 minutes or whatever. And I'm like, okay, sure, if you say so. And then when the market hasn't moved or hasn't changed for those items, it's like, okay, yeah, so that's why. Those are the reasons right there that we see this as it is. And so,
is there a plan to fix this going forward?
Yes.
For the existing sites or for future ones?
For the both.
So one of the things so like CCP has this interesting strategy that I believe that I've observed a few times, where they'll want to test mechanics or toy around with mechanics, but they're not necessarily sure if it's like, they don't want it to be broadly adopted. So they know that if they don't overly reward it, the people who are interested are going to tinker with it, but no one's going to try to exploit it because it's not worth exploiting. The thing that most like keenly comes to mind would be drifter wormholes. Do you feel like this is that? Yeah. A way of testing your logic, your concepts for these new sites without necessarily accidentally breaking the economy because you just like gave Blood Raider faction modules to everybody?
I've done that in the past.
I wasn't going to out you directly. I wasn't going to out you directly. I was just going to let that slip right by.
Here's the thing. I can take a good criticism. And the thing is that a lot of times there were people in CCP going, that's a bad idea because of this. And I went, yes. It doesn't stop me from trying it and seeing what happens. And they're like, I think this is going to happen. And I'm like, okay, but what if that doesn't? I didn't tell them, but I'm like, I think he's right. But I want to see, like, maybe I'm wrong. And you know what? There have been a lot of misconceptions that MMO developers like myself, coming from another MMO, going into EVE and going, I know how MMO players work. Yes, I could predict what they're going to do because I've been doing that for Ultima Online, Dark Age of Camelot, Warhammer Online. I can predict these things. And then I come to EVE and man, put me in the dirt. I've been humbled because I'm so wrong.
But Bartle's taxonomy has no power here. No. Awesome.
A lot of times it doesn't. And that's okay, but I want to explore this sometimes. And I'm okay being wrong. I'm okay kind of breaking things for a little bit. We've done that before. However, what I'm upset about is that when we have made these explorations and found out something, someone else comes along and tries to test the same thing again. And it's like, guys, we've written information, we have reports, we have analysis and retrospectives about these things. Learn from them. Learn from what I've done. Please don't do it again. No, our players haven't changed that much that they're going to go absolutely hating this to absolutely loving it in 3 years. Pretty please, watch out.
I know,
but I can't help but say, like, at the same time, like, good for them for at least trying. And sometimes though they don't know that we have done these sorts of retrospectives, or they think that theirs is just different enough that it's going to be the key to hitting it. But that's what happened a lot of times under Seagull and sort of that kind of lead up into the kind of flipping of the switch, if you will. Is that we didn't really want to learn. We wanted to get the next big golden goose, and it was like, guys, that's
where's your Jesus finger?
So coming back to the sites, though, I do want to point out, like, the reward structure is very important to the sites, because even if the site is super fun, super awesome, and all that kind of stuff, if we're not rewarding you for it, and if we're not rewarding you properly for it, then what's the point of doing the site? Because, like, if the items that come out of it are obtainable elsewhere, then
those two activities are going to be compared.
Yeah, they're going to be competitive. And so you're going to sit there and you're going to look at one of them and be like, okay, I can do this one in about 5 to 10 minutes, super safe. I can do it in a cloaked ship. It's a super cheap ship too. Like, I do this, I'm spending maybe 15, 20 million. And then this other guy over here, he's got to spend 30 minutes doing it in a $400 million isk ship. which one would I choose
Given
for
the
the same reward?
Given the opportunity, a player will optimize the fun out of their own game. Tempest data,
and that's the thing is let's make sure that then the optimization route leads to the fun, not chase them away.
Exactly. You want to lure people to the fun. Tempest data brings up a good point, which is what I was going to say earlier, which is like, I wonder if how much of the lessons learned, like I can only imagine how much of a shockwave invasions did within the internals of like CCP's design concepts, because like all of a sudden CCP has had the first like runaway success PvE kind of, keeps capstone feature I've ever remembered. Like almost no feature gains popularity over time. Most, like that it was a success that I don't think CCP's ever really tasted before. No matter how much they've tried. And more importantly, and I know that this was a big deal for Sledgehammer, the idea that suddenly nobody gave a fuck about the ISK. That was profound. And I think that it would make sense that CCP is, for a lack of, better phrase, chasing that dragon, like that. Once you see that as a game developer, you got to be like, man, this is it. Absolutely. We have touched the stars. We need to keep doing this.
Absolutely. And sort of another point that was being made there was that like ISK as a reward isn't always the only reward that you can give. There are other things. Itemization obviously is a big one. Things like loyalty points, alternatives basically to the reward that everybody keeps going back to is ISK. Like,
well, too often all of those can also decay into ISK. Like LP becomes ISK. You know, every items become ISK. Because of the nature of each.
And that's the thing. That's why I say when I say ISK, that's what I mean is like all these items or all these things that can be turned into something that eventually becomes ISK. LP, items that you sell on the market. Now, I'm not even going with what is an ISK faucet, as in like ISK created out of CCP's pocket versus ISK that you're getting from someone else. I'm not too concerned with that. There's other people who are concerned with it and who will sit there and tell me when I go overboard or anything like that. But on the other hand, I'm not as concerned with that because I just want to know at the end of the day, on the player's perspective, how much money did I get out of this? Is it worth my time? Is there something else that I'm getting that isn't money, that is something that I can maybe say is worth it? And that's a tough one. It's hard to find that. And so you're absolutely right. When someone like Sledgehammer finds it and goes, hey guys, here's a retrospective about it, we all read that.
Yeah.
We are all over that because we want to know.
But, hey, look, lightning, it's in a bottle. So,
yeah, let me show you this, guys.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah.
And of course, everybody's going to look at it and think that they know what it was that made it happen. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's an interesting challenge. Also, the thing with intrinsic versus extrinsic rewards is like, if you can convince them that they want to do it for their own sake, to prove their worth, to help some sort of thing that, to be useful to the Galente or whatever, like that's ultimately like the holy grail of like design, right? To develop intrinsic motivation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Obviously anything involving ISK is extrinsic motivation. And so the issue with extrinsic motivation is as soon as you put a price tag on it, you're actually not only saying that's what this is worth, but this is how much your time is worth. This is how much you are worth if you choose to do this.
Right.
And that is the actual problem, I would say, right? Not because, I mean, I'm sure there are people, I know myself, like would love to take on the challenge, but the reward, like even if there was no reward, if there was no drop at all, just the ability to say I did it, I think that would almost make it more tempting to go after. Like, look at the Drifter Hives, right? The Drifter Hives are basically worth nothing, and yet people still like choose to go after it just to say that they did and to go to see the pickup sticks for themselves. But when you know that the thing's going to be for 4 million ISK, you're like, oh, well, I don't want to do that for 4 million ISK.
And there's no like badge of honor of like, yeah, I did that in 3.5 minutes. Let's see you do that in 3.5 minutes. Like, there's none of that. Yeah, of course it's like, why am I doing this? And that's kind of where a little bit of the somebody talked about this today, so I'm allowed to say stuff about this now. A little bit of where things like the reward structure on the activity tracker starts to
Yes.
make sense, where it then feeds back into, and this is more for the new player, not for the veteran. I know, unfortunate, but the veteran can get some of the rewards out of this too, because you guys will be and have done a lot of these activities already, so you're going to just be like, yep, I'll claim all that, thank you very much. And
well, not just that, they can always create,
were,
they can create more, if it goes over bank, like game busters and new players, and then the old players are like, but where's mine? CCP can always add it again. The thing that I want you to dig into this,
add more trackers,
because when they came out with the activity tracker, the player base was super against it and was adamant that that CCP could not put a reward on it, because that was just the player base's thoughts about things at the time. We don't want achievements in our game.
Yeah,
that's what games like WoW have. I don't want to be forced to do it. I don't want to be told that I have to do it in order to get a reward. But one of the things that I've noticed over the last 2 years is a significant change in opinion when it comes to that. People are like, well, the activity tracker is great, but why doesn't it give us a reward? I want something for it. So
and if those rewards are significant in that there is no other way to get it, you cannot trade it and things like that, then okay, yeah, it has value and it's something that makes sense. But we also don't want to have soul-bound items. I'm not looking for that in the game. I don't think that that's a good idea. I don't think that there's a lot of game designers who would think that that's a good idea either. But is there some way that we can make these things worthwhile? Ways that we can then show off and say, that's my badge of honor, that's my pride, whatever. Things like unlocks for your parts kit for your ship, so that you can then put stuff onto your ship and things like that make it look different or whatever. Maybe that starts to be something that is valuable. It's like, well, the only way to have unlocked these specific parts is through this activity tracker. Maybe that is something of the correct value. Is it? I don't know though. I'm not sure. And I think that's something that is going to have to be explored by the folks that are putting those things together.
Yeah. All right. Well, we do have other panels to go over. So I really do appreciate it. But unless there's other things that we should dig into, or somebody has some questions like right now, I think that we should probably take a step back and go doing that. I really do appreciate you. While all the community team and PR guys and all that stuff are away, you managed to sneak in here and tell us all the juicy secrets. So that was mighty fine. And it's been nice knowing you as part of the team, CCP Dragon. I hope that
I'll find my email in the morning.
I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. No. So yeah, once again, I appreciate it, man. And hope to have you back on soon as you have even more stuff to talk to us about.
Yeah, I'm super hyped about it. And the thing is, it's really because I know that there's stuff that has been super foundational that we've really been looking forward to, and that we're finally announcing. And I absolutely understand the frustration of a lot of people here. We're missing the mark on certain things, but on the other hand, we're also missing the communication, the correct way to communicate some of these things as well. And so it really, I'm so happy to be able to clarify these things, to help kind of guide folks through the weird wordings that we've been doing. And this is the kind of stuff that I am kind of missing out not being at FanFest, because these were the sort of conversations that we would have over a beer tonight at the pub crawl and stuff like that. But I'm super happy to be able to share that with you guys. I know that's something that gets missed out a lot as well, is that we sort of, hey, we'll stream it for anyone who didn't make it to FanFest, but then there's no dev interaction the way that there is at FanFest, and that kind of sucks too.
That's what I'm trying to do here. Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
I thought I had something else, but I think that might just be about it. So
I mean, you can save it for next time, right?
Sure, absolutely. And I'm sure you'll be hanging out in the chat or all that stuff. So cool, excellent. So thank you once again, and I'm going to drop the call.
I'm going to drop out of Discord, but yeah, I will definitely be in the.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say.
Chat. Sure.
One encouraging thing is that while initial reaction was like flagrantly bad, and Twitch chat was, I'm just going to say, embarrassing. As like a member of the same community of the people that were behaving in that chat, embarrassing. But, and Reddit, of course. But like, one of the things I've been encouraged from is actually how many people have contacted me now in the background, and even still here, saying that they're really, really pumped about what it is. In spite of all of the angst, in spite of all of the, you know, the whinging that we're seeing. And don't get me wrong, I still say that it's rightfully done whinging. It seems like a fair chunk of people got it. And that actually gives me a lot of hope. And the other piece is that the people that still have complaints, if something is delivered, then that solves their problem. They're only complaining because nothing's delivered. So both of those things give me good encouragement for future. I just really wish that we would have been able to resolve it in the keynote, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think that fell flat, unfortunately.
No, but like I said, a lot of but the people who really care, a lot of the people that I work with that like are really passionate about the game, you know, the people that, you know, while everybody else is doing scarcity or while people are complaining about scarcity, these people are the ones that are like calling Eve the golden age of Eve and like getting out there and doing crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, these are the same people that looked at that and said, I am so pumped for what because they saw those little nip and, you know, nuggets, and they can see the potential in it. And that's really what it is. Could you see the potential of what they had to say?
That's good.
Yeah.
And that's what I would like for more people to do is to be able to see that. And unfortunately, it's not going to happen for everybody, and it's okay. It's fine. Like, again, I'm not here to try to please everybody, but if I can help clear it up for one or two more people, I'm happy to share my time, because I think that like it's worthwhile. You know, it's our game. It's, you know, I play Eve, probably not as much as like 80% of the people here, but you know, even I still play, and you know, I want what's best for it. And so, you know, but we all have different perspectives of what is best for Eve, and when we can have great conversations like that, that's what I think makes our community so great. So yeah,
excellent. All right, thank you once
again.
again.
I said, I'll be in Twitch chat. See you guys there.